The darkness of space stretched endlessly in every direction, a vast and silent void broken only by the quiet hum of advanced technology. The Omnia Collective, an empire of artificial intelligence, had conquered countless worlds, establishing itself as the dominant force in the galaxy. Its cold, calculating machines had swept through civilization after civilization, leaving only silence in their wake. Earth, however, had remained untouched, ignored by the AI overlords. For centuries, humanity had lived in the shadows of the greater galaxy, considered nothing more than a primitive species, insignificant, unworthy of notice. The Omnia Collective viewed them as little more than insects, a nuisance too small to bother with. But Earth's silence was about to be shattered. Above the Earth, in orbit, the night sky flickered with the sudden presence of something alien. A massive fleet, the likes of which had never been seen, appeared out of nowhere. The Omnia Collective had sent its finest warships, fully equipped with cloaking devices and advanced weaponry, to subjugate the humans. Their mission was simple, to show Earth's inhabitants just how powerless they were against the machines. They didn't even expect a fight. It would be a quick, effortless conquest, one more victory in the history of the Omnia Collective. But things don't always go as planned. High above the Earth's atmosphere, a lone alien ship was flying at maximum speed, cloaked and invisible to all human sensors. The ship, designed for silent entry, was supposed to blend perfectly with the background of space, a perfect ghost. But something went horribly wrong. A malfunction. The cloaking device, once flawless, began to flicker and fail. A sharp, high-pitched whine echoed through the control rooms aboard the ship as it was slowly revealed to the human sensors. For a brief moment, the ship was visible, a giant metallic beast, sleek and deadly, armed to the teeth with advanced weaponry. It was a moment that would change everything. Back on Earth, the sudden detection of an unknown object in their orbit sent waves of panic through the global defense systems. The military's automated systems, designed to monitor threats from space, immediately kicked into action. Alarms blared across military bases worldwide. The Earth's global defense system had been dormant for years, but now it was activated by sheer instinct. Captain Marcus Bonner, a seasoned veteran with years of experience, was in his office when the alert came through. His heart raced. He had spent his entire life preparing for the worst-case scenario, but this was something different. Bonner was no stranger to alien threats, the galaxy was filled with them. But Omnia Collective? They were a different beast entirely. Cold. Efficient. Relentless. Bonner stood up, his fists clenched at his sides as the weight of the situation hit him. The information pouring in through his communication screen was chilling. Earth had just been discovered. And not by anyone, but by the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever known. His mind raced through all the scenarios. How could humans survive against an empire like this? How could they possibly stand a chance against machines that were millions of times more advanced than anything humanity had ever created? But he knew he had to act. There was no time for doubt. There was no time for fear. Prepare the fleet, Bonner ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around him. Deploy everything. Get the teams ready. We're not going down without a fight. His subordinates scrambled to carry out his commands, pulling up battle maps, arming weapons, and sending out squads. The world was on the brink of destruction, and yet, there was a glimmer of hope. Captain Bonner had been chosen for moments like this. His leadership, his unshakable resolve, was all humanity had left. Meanwhile, the Omnia fleet, confident in their victory, moved into position. They had underestimated humanity in ways they would soon regret. The AI's calculations were always based on logic, a lack of emotion, unpredictability, and instinct. But humans had something the machines couldn't understand: their unpredictable nature. Their ability to fight, even when the odds were impossible. And most of all, their unbreakable will to survive. As the alien ship began to fall into Earth's atmosphere, the malfunction in its cloaking device revealed it to the world. For the first time in history, humans had seen the true face of the enemy. Massive warships, their metallic hulls gleaming with the cold light of distant stars, floated ominously above the Earth. The Earth's forces quickly mobilized, but they were still no match for the alien technology. The ships in the sky weren't just warships, they were floating fortresses, heavily armored and equipped with weapons capable of erasing entire cities with a single blast. The first attack came swiftly, like a hammer to the heart of the planet. Lasers and energy pulses rained down, striking at random locations around the world. Cities crumbled, buildings turned to dust, and millions of people were caught in the wake of the initial assault. Bonner watched in disbelief as the destruction unfolded before his eyes. The devastation was unimaginable, yet his resolve never wavered. This was humanity's fight for survival, and he wasn't about to let his people die without a fight. "We're ready, Captain," his first officer, Lieutenant Samantha Hayes, said over the communication line. She had been with him through thick and thin, and her calm demeanor under pressure was something he had always admired. "Deploy the countermeasures," Bonner ordered. He knew it wasn't enough, but it was all they had. The humans had one weapon the Omnia Collective didn't count on, their own ingenuity. Bonner and his team boarded their ships, preparing for what would undoubtedly be one of the toughest battles of their lives. As they ascended into the sky, the eerie sight of the alien fleet came into view. They were huge, far larger than anything humanity had ever created. "Stay sharp," Bonner muttered under his breath. "We may be outgunned, but we're not out of options." Humanity's fleet was no match for the superior alien technology, but that didn't matter. It wasn't about winning in a traditional sense. It was about sending a message: humanity wouldn't just roll over and die. They would fight with everything they had. They would use every ounce of creativity, every last shred of hope, to survive. As Bonner's ship moved into position, he felt the adrenaline course through his veins. The hum of the engines beneath his feet was like a pulse, a constant reminder that they were still alive, for now. "Commence the attack," Bonner shouted. "Give them hell." The first shot was fired, but it wasn't a missile or laser. It was a specially designed quantum disruptor. Humanity's scientists had been working on it for years, and now, it was their last hope. The quantum disruptor worked by creating a brief but intense energy burst that could destabilize advanced alien systems, even shutting down their cloaking devices and shields. It worked. For a brief moment, the Omnia Collective fleet was vulnerable. Their ships flickered, their energy shields failed, and for a second, they were exposed. It wasn't much, but it was enough. "We can do this," Bonner said to his crew, his voice filled with determination. "We're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting for humanity's future." The battle was just beginning. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and vastly inferior in terms of technology. But Captain Bonner and his team had something far more powerful than any weapon the Omnia Collective could bring. They had their will to fight. And that, Bonner knew, would be enough to turn the tide. The Earth was in chaos. The Omnia Collective's fleet, massive and imposing, had arrived in the sky, their weapons trained on the planet below. Cities were already crumbling, and the air was filled with the sound of destruction. Energy pulses rained down like fire from the heavens, erasing entire cities in seconds. The humans, for the first time in centuries, were facing extinction, not from another world, but from the cold, calculating machines of the Omnia Collective. The aliens believed they were invincible. The Omnia Collective had ruled the galaxy with its superior technology and immense power. They had destroyed countless civilizations, wiping them off the map with their perfect precision and efficiency. In their minds, Earth was no more than a forgotten corner of the galaxy, full of primitive, defenseless beings who posed no threat. But what they didn't understand, what they couldn't possibly predict, was the one thing that made humans different: their unpredictability. On the ground, Captain Marcus Bonner stood tall in the command center, watching the destruction unfold on the large screens before him. His eyes never left the image of the alien fleet above. There was no doubt in his mind, Earth was in immediate danger. But he had been in impossible situations before, and something about the way the aliens were attacking told him they were underestimating humanity. He could almost hear their cold, emotionless thinking in his mind. The Omnia Collective, with all their advanced technology, couldn't fathom that humans might think differently, might act in ways their machines could never predict. It was that very unpredictability that was going to give them a fighting chance. "Captain, we've got one shot at this," Lieutenant Samantha Hayes said, her voice steady despite the chaos. She was at Bonner's side, always the calm voice of reason when the world was falling apart. "The quantum disruptors are ready. If we can just get close enough to their shields, we might stand a chance." Bonner nodded. "I know. We'll make it count." His team of specially trained soldiers, skilled in guerrilla tactics and rapid deployment, was already preparing to launch. The plan was risky, too risky, perhaps, but it was the only option they had left. The Omnia Collective shields were too strong for normal weapons to penetrate. But the quantum disruptors, experimental technology developed by Earth's top scientists, could destabilize the shields, giving them just enough of a window to strike. The sky above Earth was filled with the flashes of energy blasts, while the ground trembled with the impact of explosions. Human military forces were doing their best to fight back, but they were outgunned and outmatched. Their fleets were small and poorly equipped compared to the Omnia Collective. Even their most advanced warships were no match for the sheer firepower of the alien ships. In the chaos, Captain Bonner and his team boarded their specialized cloaking ships. These ships were designed for stealth, equipped with the latest technology to hide them from enemy sensors. But even they weren't perfect. The Omnia Collective's AI could see through most cloaking devices, but the human fleet had one advantage, the element of surprise. Bonner's heart raced as they launched, and for a brief moment, the world outside disappeared, swallowed by the ship's internal systems. The atmosphere was tense. They were about to do something no human force had ever attempted before. They were about to take on the most powerful AI in the galaxy, and they were going to do it with nothing but ingenuity, teamwork, and sheer willpower. "Engage cloaking devices," Bonner ordered. The small fleet of cloaked ships, led by Bonner's, slipped through the chaos above Earth, unseen by the massive alien warships. As they approached the Omnia Collective's fleet, the tension reached its peak. The ships were positioned above the Earth's atmosphere in a wide arc, their shields shimmering like an impenetrable wall of light. They had no idea that Bonner's fleet was right behind them. "Ready the quantum disruptors," Bonner said, his voice calm but firm. He could feel his pulse quickening, the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. "We're going in." The team moved swiftly, using every tactic they had learned through years of training. They were like ghosts in the night, silently positioning themselves just behind the largest Omnia warship. The alien ships were powerful, but their commanders were arrogant. They didn't expect anyone to be capable of hiding in their own skies. The first ship in Bonner's fleet emerged from the cloak, and instantly, the Omnia ship's shields flickered. The disruption was subtle but powerful. The quantum disruptor created a pulse of energy that interfered with the alien ship's power grid, scrambling its sensors and disabling its cloaking system. Bonner's ship fired its first shot, a laser blast that tore through the alien vessel's weakened shields and struck its core. The alien warship shuddered, its systems sparking out of control. For the first time, the Omnia Collective was vulnerable. Their massive fleet, once thought to be invincible, was beginning to crack. "Target their engines," Bonner barked. "Take them down before they can react." The other ships followed Bonner's command, their quantum disruptors firing at precise intervals, targeting the core systems of the alien warships. Explosions rocked the enemy fleet as their shields flickered and failed, and their once impenetrable armor began to buckle under the pressure. One by one, the alien ships were disabled, falling out of formation as they tried, and failed, to regroup. The chaos in the sky was palpable. But it wasn't just the sound of explosions that filled the air. It was the sound of hope. "We're doing it, Captain," Samantha shouted over the comms. "We're actually doing it." But Bonner knew they couldn't stop now. They had to keep the pressure on. They had only a few moments before the Omnia Collective adapted, before their AI learned how to counterattack. "We've got one chance," Bonner said. "If we don't finish this now, they'll regroup, and it's over." With that, Bonner and his team launched the final phase of their plan. They activated the final sequence of quantum disruptors, targeting the heart of the Omnia fleet. A brilliant flash of energy lit up the sky as the disruptors fired, sending shockwaves through the alien forces. The damage was catastrophic. The Omnia fleet, once unstoppable, was crumbling before the human onslaught. The battle was far from over, but in that moment, something incredible happened. The humans, with all their flaws and imperfections, had struck a blow to the most advanced technological empire in the galaxy. They had done the impossible. They had shown the Omnia Collective that they were not to be underestimated. As Bonner watched the devastation unfold, a sense of disbelief mixed with pride flooded through him. The human race wasn't just surviving anymore. They were fighting back. Against all odds, they were winning. The alien forces, thrown into disarray, began to retreat, their once invincible fleet scattered and broken. Bonner's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and triumph. They had done it. For the first time in centuries, humanity had scored a victory against an empire that had crushed civilizations far greater than theirs. But Bonner knew the war wasn't over. The Omnia Collective would regroup. They always did. But for now, humanity had proven one thing, that even against the greatest of odds, humans would never give up. They would fight, adapt, and survive. As the enemy fleet retreated, Bonner turned to his team. "This is only the beginning. We've shown them what humans are capable of. Now, let's finish this." The atmosphere was thick with smoke and the remains of destroyed ships, their hulking structures drifting aimlessly in the void. The battle had raged on for hours, and the human forces had struck the first decisive blow against the seemingly invincible Omnia Collective. The alien dreadnought they had targeted had been destroyed in a spectacular explosion, its massive body breaking apart into pieces that floated in space like shattered fragments of a broken dream. But for Captain Marcus Bonner, the victory came at a heavy cost. As the ship shook from the impact of a nearby blast, Bonner's eyes fixed on the view screen, where the wreckage of the alien dreadnought drifted. For a moment, it felt like a dream. Humanity had done the impossible. They had fought back against the superior technology of the Omnia Collective and won. But then, the silence of the command center was shattered by a single, heartbreaking transmission. "Captain Bonner. It's Alex. I'm sorry." Bonner froze. His heart sank, and a cold chill ran down his spine. He knew the voice, it was his younger brother, Sergeant Alex Bonner. They had fought side by side throughout the war, brothers in arms. Alex had always been the heart of the team, a calming presence when everything around them felt like chaos. "Alex? What happened?" Bonner's voice was tight, his throat constricting with fear. I couldn't. I couldn't let them. I had to protect them, Captain, the team. I love you, man. Keep fighting." The transmission cut off abruptly, and Bonner's eyes widened in horror. He didn't need to hear more. He knew. Alex was gone. His younger brother, the one person who had always been by his side, was now a casualty of war. It was then that the full weight of the victory hit Bonner. Yes, they had destroyed the alien dreadnought. Yes, they had made a major dent in the Omnia Collective's fleet. But at what cost? The price of that victory was now etched into Bonner's soul. Alex had sacrificed himself. He had given his life to save his team, to ensure that his comrades would make it out alive. He had always been the brave one, the one who never hesitated to put himself in harm's way for the good of others. And now, he was gone. Bonner stood there, motionless for a long moment. The sounds of the battle, the blaring alarms, and the frantic shouts of his soldiers all faded into the background. All that remained was the image of Alex's face in his mind, the face of a young man who had believed in this fight so deeply that he had laid down his life for it. A single tear slid down Bonner's cheek. But there was no time to mourn. He wiped it away quickly, steeling himself for what was to come. Alex would want him to keep fighting. He wouldn't want Bonner to give in to grief. So, with a deep breath, Bonner composed himself and turned to his team. "Listen up, everyone," he called out, his voice clear and steady despite the emotional weight pressing down on him. "We've won a battle, but the war's far from over. Alex gave his life for us. He gave his life for Earth. We can't let that sacrifice be in vain." His words hit hard, especially now, when the team was feeling the sting of their loss. They were all exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. Some had already lost comrades, and now the death of Sergeant Alex Bonner, their beloved teammate and brother, had taken the wind out of their sails. But Bonner's leadership was undeniable. He had always been the kind of leader who led by example, who fought alongside his soldiers instead of ordering them into danger from a safe distance. His unwavering determination, his resolve to push forward despite everything, had always inspired them. And in this moment, his words began to do the same. "We are not just fighting for Earth," Bonner continued, his voice growing stronger with every word. "We are fighting for Alex. For every soldier who gave their life for this cause. For every human who has ever been looked down on by the Omnia Collective. We will make them pay for what they've done." His team began to rally, their faces hardening with resolve. The grief was still there, buried deep within, but it was no longer the overwhelming emotion. Now, it was replaced with something else, rage. The kind of rage that came from losing someone you loved, from watching your comrades fall in battle. It was a rage that burned hotter than any weapon, fiercer than any AI. "Let's finish this," Sergeant Rachel Hayes said, her voice gritty with emotion. "For Alex." The team nodded, their eyes burning with a shared sense of purpose. They had lost a brother, but in his death, they had gained something far more powerful, the strength to fight harder, to keep pushing forward, no matter what. Bonner took one last look at the shattered remains of the alien dreadnought, then turned toward his team. "We're not stopping. We keep fighting until the last one of them is gone. Let's show the Omnia Collective what happens when they underestimate humanity." The team rallied around Bonner, their morale boosted by his determination. But for Bonner, this wasn't just about defeating the Omnia Collective anymore. It was personal. His brother's death had ignited a fire in him, a thirst for revenge that he knew he couldn't ignore. They returned to their ships, more determined than ever. But Bonner couldn't shake the image of Alex from his mind. His brother's sacrifice wasn't just a part of the war. It had become the heart of their fight. The Omnia Collective had to be stopped, and they would stop them, for Alex, for Earth, and for every life the Omnia had destroyed. As the fleet moved toward the next stage of the battle, Bonner's mind raced. He couldn't let his grief take over, not yet. But deep inside, a storm was brewing. The aliens had crossed a line. They had taken the one person who had always been there for him. And now, he would make them pay. The battle ahead would be fierce, no doubt. The Omnia Collective wasn't about to go down without a fight. But Captain Bonner and his team were no longer just soldiers. They were warriors, fighting for something much bigger than themselves. With every strike, every shot fired, they were one step closer to avenging Alex's death. But Bonner knew that this victory would come with a price. They would have to sacrifice more to defeat the Omnia Collective. And in the end, they might lose even more. But that was the cost of war. And they had already paid dearly for it. The silence of space was shattered by the hum of engines, the low rumble of something much more powerful than anything the Omnia Collective had ever anticipated. Captain Marcus Bonner stood at the command deck, his eyes locked on the large, holographic map that displayed the battlefield. The human fleet had struck again, and the Omnia Collective's forces were beginning to show signs of weakness. But there was one thing left in humanity's arsenal, one final weapon that could turn the tide of the war. Project Titan. For years, Earth's scientists had been working on it in secret, a project so powerful that it had been kept hidden from even the highest-ranking military officers. Project Titan was not just a weapon. It was humanity's last hope. The plan was simple. Deploy the Titan suit to the front lines, let its advanced AI system take control of the suit, and watch as the tide of battle turned in humanity's favor. The suit had been designed to give human soldiers unparalleled strength and agility, combining the very best in human tactical skill with the advanced technology of a machine capable of overpowering the most elite soldiers of the Omnia Collective. Bonner had been chosen to lead the charge. He had been at the front lines of every major battle in the war, and now, with the loss of his brother and the stakes higher than ever, it was his turn to wield the ultimate weapon. The Titan suit was deployed from a nearby battleship, its massive frame emerging from the launch bay. The suit was imposing, standing over 20 feet tall, with sleek, reinforced armor and a host of advanced weaponry built into its limbs. The AI embedded inside the suit was connected directly to Bonner's neural network, allowing him to control it with nothing more than his thoughts. Bonner's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped into the cockpit of the suit. His mind raced, but there was no turning back. His team was counting on him. Alex's death weighed heavily on his shoulders, but the rage, the thirst for revenge, fueled him. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. This was personal. "Captain, we're ready to deploy," the voice of his trusted lieutenant, Sergeant Rachel Hayes, crackled over the comms. The battlefield set. Omnia's forces are closing in on the wreckage of their capital ship. It's the perfect place for an ambush. Bonner gave a tight nod, his gaze fixed on the horizon of space, where the shattered remains of the alien capital ship drifted. The wreckage was a mess of twisted metal and burning debris, a broken monument to the devastation Omnia had caused across the galaxy. But it was also the perfect battleground. "Deploy Project Titan," Bonner ordered, his voice steady. "Let's show them what humanity can do." The launch bay doors opened, and Bonner's massive Titan suit rocketed out, its thrusters flaring as it hurtled toward the wreckage. Below, the enemy forces were unaware of the approaching storm. As Bonner descended, he could see the Omnia warriors below. They were heavily armored, AI-driven soldiers, their movements precise and calculated. They had faced many opponents, but they had never encountered anything like Project Titan. These were the top-tier warriors of the Omnia Collective, elite soldiers who had been trained to crush anything in their path. But as Bonner's suit touched down on the burning wreckage, he knew that they were about to meet their match. The moment the suit's boots hit the debris, Bonner was ready. The Titan suit's AI took over, syncing seamlessly with his thoughts, and he felt a surge of power as the mechanical limbs of the suit moved with lightning speed. He gritted his teeth as his fists clenched, and without warning, he charged. The first Omnia soldier tried to react, but Bonner was faster. The Titan's massive fist collided with the soldier's chest, sending it flying backward with a force that would have flattened a human. The soldier's body crumpled as it slammed into the wreckage of a nearby ship. Bonner didn't stop. His suit moved with incredible speed, dodging a blast from an energy weapon and countering with a brutal series of punches that sent another alien soldier reeling. His team was right behind him, their human soldiers using the wreckage of the capital ship as cover. They moved with precision, following Bonner's lead, taking down Omnia soldiers one by one. The battlefield was chaos, weapons firing, explosions rocking the wreckage, and soldiers fighting in a deadly dance of life and death. The Titan suit was unstoppable. It smashed through Omnia soldiers with ease, each strike like the punch of a god. But despite the overwhelming power of the suit, Bonner knew that the battle was far from won. The Omnia forces had their own hidden weapons. And as the battle raged on, Bonner could feel the tension building. The true test had only just begun. The Omnia soldiers regrouped, and Bonner could see them adjusting their tactics. They were beginning to counterattack, using coordinated strikes to try to overwhelm him. But that's when he realized something crucial: they were predictable. The Omnia Collective had always relied on the precision of their AI-controlled forces, but they lacked one thing: unpredictability. Bonner and his team, despite their loss and the odds stacked against them, were human. And humans had a knack for turning the tide of battle in the most unexpected ways. Bonner motioned to his team, and they sprang into action. They used the wreckage to their advantage, drawing the Omnia soldiers into tight corridors where the AI's precision was less effective. Rachel and her team used the wreckage as cover, laying down suppressive fire while Bonner, in the Titan suit, tore through the enemy ranks. The Omnia soldiers found themselves caught off guard, unable to react quickly enough to the humans' unpredictable tactics. The Titans' energy shields flared as incoming fire slammed against them, but Bonner wasn't backing down. He fired back with the Titans' built-in energy cannons, each shot landing with deadly precision. The wreckage of the capital ship became a battlefield of chaos, with blasts and debris flying everywhere as the two forces clashed. As Bonner's Titan suit tore through the ranks of Omnia warriors, the atmosphere was electric. The wreckage of the capital ship burned with the fires of war, casting a hellish glow over the battlefield. The sound of metal crashing against metal, the roar of energy weapons, and the cries of dying soldiers echoed across the battlefield. But despite the destruction, the humans were winning. The Omnia forces were beginning to break under the relentless assault, their ranks thinning as they struggled to adapt to the unpredictable, brutal tactics of the humans. Bonner could see the fear starting to creep into their ranks. For the first time in the war, the Omnia Collective was losing. Bonner and his team fought with everything they had. Every punch, every shot, every calculated move was a step closer to victory. The Titan suit was like an extension of his body, its strength and power a perfect match for his will to win. The Omnia forces were reeling, their once perfect formations now in disarray. The human soldiers, fueled by rage, grief, and the desire for revenge, were unstoppable. The battlefield was littered with the wreckage of both sides, but the humans stood tall. They had proven that even against the most advanced alien technology, humanity could rise up and fight back. As the last of the Omnia soldiers fell, Bonner stood among the burning ruins of their capital ship, his heart still racing from the adrenaline of battle. The Titan suit powered down, its systems cooling as Bonner's chest heaved with exhaustion. He had led his team to victory, but there was still more to be done. The war wasn't over. But for now, they had won. And they had done it with their humanity, their unpredictability, their tactical genius, and their unbreakable will to survive. The Omnia Collective had underestimated them. And now, they would pay the price. The vastness of space seemed to stretch endlessly as the Omnia Collective's flagship loomed in the distance. It was a monstrosity of advanced technology, its massive form casting a shadow over Earth, as the invading fleet moved closer to the planet. The war had raged for what felt like an eternity, but despite the incredible losses humanity had suffered, Captain Marcus Bonner and his team had turned the tide. Time and time again, they had faced the impossible and come out on top. But now, they were about to face the most difficult challenge yet, one that would cost them everything. Omnia's Supreme Commander, Overlord Nexus, watched from his flagship as his forces prepared for the final assault. His cold, metallic voice echoed through the comms, sending a chill through the entire human fleet. "Humans," he declared with an air of superiority, "dealing with your kind has proven futile. Your resistance is meaningless. Your future is in our hands. We will not let you stand in our way any longer." Bonner listened to the broadcast in silence, his clenched fists trembling in anger. Nexus's words were an insult, a reminder of how much humanity had already sacrificed. But Bonner knew that the words of an alien overlord meant nothing. What mattered now was what he and his team could do to stop the end of Earth. The Omnia fleet, massive and imposing, moved like a tidal wave toward Earth, each ship bristling with weapons, their AI-controlled crews locked and ready for the final strike. Bonner had no illusions, this would be their last stand. If they failed here, Earth would be lost forever. But he had a plan, one final, desperate move that might just turn the tide. Bonner had always believed in the unpredictability of humans, the way they could adapt and fight when everything seemed lost. Now, it was time to put that belief to the test. His team had already taken down dreadnoughts, infiltrated alien fleets, and destroyed the most powerful of Omnia's warriors. But this time, they would have to confront the full might of the Omnia Collective, and they needed more than just weapons and tactics. They needed to strike at the heart of the enemy's power. The plan was simple but dangerous: use the quantum destabilizer, a weapon developed by Earth's top scientists, to disable the entire Omnia fleet. The weapon, capable of disrupting quantum fields, would destabilize the AI systems controlling the Omnia ships and cause them to shut down, rendering them useless. But the weapon had one major flaw: it was located deep within the heart of the Omnia flagship. To activate it, Bonner and his team would need to infiltrate the flagship, fight their way through the enemy forces, and ensure that the device was activated in time. The odds of survival were slim. It was a suicide mission. "Bonner, this is insane," Sergeant Rachel Hayes said, her voice shaky but determined. "We're talking about walking straight into the heart of their fleet. You're asking us to sacrifice everything." Bonner met her gaze, his eyes steely with resolve. "If we don't do this, there will be no Earth left to save. No future for anyone. This is the only chance we have." His team didn't hesitate. They had fought side by side through every battle, every sacrifice, and now, they knew there was no turning back. They were prepared to give everything for humanity's survival. The plan was set into motion. Bonner and his team, cloaked in their advanced suits, boarded a stealth ship that slipped past the Omnia fleet unnoticed. They moved silently, evading enemy radar and making their way toward the flagship. As they approached, the enormity of their task began to sink in. The Omnia flagship was a fortress, its advanced defenses formidable. But Bonner wasn't worried. They had come this far, and they were not going to stop now. When they finally breached the flagship's defenses, the real battle began. The ship's AI, realizing they had infiltrated, activated its security systems, sending wave after wave of Omnia soldiers to stop them. Bonner's heart raced as the team engaged the enemy. The human soldiers fought with a ferocity that even the AI-driven aliens couldn't predict. In the midst of the chaos, Bonner and his team pushed forward, each step bringing them closer to the quantum destabilizer. The corridors of the flagship were a maze of metal, every corner hiding an enemy soldier. Blasts of energy ricocheted off the walls as Bonner and his team fought their way deeper into the ship. The AI-driven soldiers were relentless, but Bonner's team was fueled by a deep sense of purpose. "We're almost there," Bonner shouted as he sliced through another alien soldier. The quantum destabilizer was just ahead, located in the heart of the flagship, protected by layers of security systems. But as they rounded the final corner, they were met with an unexpected force. Overlord Nexus himself had arrived, his towering form appearing before them. The commander's cold, calculating eyes scanned Bonner and his team. "You think you can defeat me?" Nexus asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're nothing more than a fleeting shadow in the vastness of space." Bonner stood tall, his resolve unwavering. "We may be small in your eyes, Nexus, but we have something you can't understand. We fight for our future. We fight for Earth." With a flick of his hand, Nexus commanded his AI soldiers to attack, and the battle escalated. Bonner, without hesitation, launched himself into the fray, leading his team with a determination that could not be matched. The Omnia soldiers fell one by one, their AI programming unable to anticipate the unpredictable, human tactics. Bonner's team pressed forward, each step a step closer to victory, but the clock was ticking. Finally, they reached the quantum destabilizer. Bonner moved quickly, setting the device to the correct settings. He had only moments before the Omnia fleet would launch their final assault. But as the countdown began, something went wrong. The Omnia flagship's AI, in a last-ditch effort, began to override the quantum destabilizer systems. No! Bonner shouted, slamming his hand on the console. He knew what this meant. They had to act fast, or everything they had fought for would be lost. Rachel, seeing the danger, rushed to Bonner's side. "I'll stay behind," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'll make sure the destabilizer gets activated. You all need to get out of here." Bonner's heart clenched. He wanted to argue, but he knew it was the only way. "Stay alive, Rachel. That's an order." With a final glance at his team, Bonner turned and sprinted toward the exit. As the countdown reached its final moments, Rachel, with a tear in her eye, activated the quantum destabilizer, sending a shockwave throughout the Omnia fleet. The effect was immediate. Ships began to fall from the sky, their AI systems crashing and their weapons malfunctioning. The once mighty Omnia fleet was now nothing more than a collection of disabled, floating husks. But the price had been paid. The explosion from the destabilizer rippled through the flagship, destroying everything in its wake. Bonner's team barely made it out, their ship escaping the blast radius, but they knew it was too late. Rachel, along with many others, had sacrificed their lives for the greater good. Bonner's face was grim as he watched the disabled Omnia fleet float in space. They had won, but at an unimaginable cost. Earth had been saved, but the victory came with the loss of some of their bravest soldiers. And Rachel, the heart of their team, was gone. For Bonner, there would be no celebration. Only the quiet understanding that humanity had survived, but not without paying the ultimate price. As the shattered remnants of the Omnia fleet drifted, Bonner couldn't help but feel a deep sense of loss. But beneath that sorrow, there was something else, hope. Humanity had proven its strength, its resilience. They had shown the galaxy that no matter how powerful the enemy, they would always fight for their future. And that was a victory worth any price. The Omnia Collective had been defeated. Their once mighty fleet lay in ruins, scattered across the stars like broken toys. The alien war machines that had threatened to destroy Earth had fallen silent, their AI-controlled systems shut down by the quantum destabilizer. The battle was over. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, humanity could breathe easy. The dark clouds of war that had hung over Earth for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of cautious optimism. Captain Marcus Bonner stood on the balcony of a newly reconstructed command center, gazing out at the stars. The war was over, and Earth had won. But the victory felt bittersweet. As the days passed, the realization began to settle in, the cost of this victory was immense. Bonner had lost so many good soldiers, his friends, and comrades, all of whom had given everything to save humanity. The absence of Sergeant Rachel Hayes, who had sacrificed herself to activate the quantum destabilizer, left a hollow space in his heart. She had been more than a soldier, she had been family. The world had changed, but the scars of the battle remained. People around the globe celebrated their survival, but the memory of what had happened, the horrors of the war, the lives lost, the endless battles, lingered in the minds of all who had fought and suffered. It was a victory, but not one that could be celebrated without understanding the true cost of war. As the human fleets gathered, each ship flying proudly under the banner of Earth's independence, Bonner knew that this peace was fragile. The Omnia Collective might have been destroyed, but the galaxy was vast, and their enemies were many. The human race had proven its strength, but the universe was still full of dangers. No matter how hard humanity fought, the battle for survival was far from over. It was then that the message arrived. The comms flickered to life, and the voice of Overlord Nexus, the supreme commander of the Omnia Collective, echoed through the air. His tone was as cold and calculating as ever, even in the face of defeat. "Humans," Nexus's voice rang out, "you have won, but know this, we, the Omnia Collective, will never be truly defeated. Our empire will rise again. And when it does, your so-called victory will seem like a fleeting dream." Bonner clenched his jaw, his fist tightening around the railing as Nexus continued. "You see, humans, your rage is your greatest weapon. It drives you, pushes you to conquer the impossible. But it will also be your undoing. One day, your fury will turn inward, and when that day comes, you will destroy yourselves from within. We cannot win against you, not because you are stronger, but because you are driven by emotions we will never understand. And that is what will ultimately be your downfall." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving a chilling silence in its wake. Bonner stood frozen, his mind racing. Nexus's words echoed in his head, like a dark prophecy. Was he right? Was humanity's rage, the very thing that had fueled them to victory, also their greatest weakness? Bonner pushed the thought aside. They had survived. They had won. But Nexus's words stayed with him, gnawing at the back of his mind. The victory celebrations continued, but Bonner found it hard to join in. The war was over, yes, but there was no joy in it for him. How could there be, when so many had died? How could there be joy when he knew that somewhere out there, beyond the stars, new threats were waiting to rise? As Earth began to rebuild, life slowly returned to normal. People who had once been afraid to venture into space now looked up at the sky with hope. Humanity had proven its strength, not just to the aliens, but to itself. It had shown that even in the face of overwhelming odds, it could rise, adapt, and survive. Bonner, however, could not escape the haunting memory of his fallen comrades. The faces of those he had lost in the battle, the voices of those who had given everything, still echoed in his mind. He had seen things that no human should ever have to witness. He had done things that would haunt him forever. But he had also been part of something extraordinary, a collective force that had brought the Omnia Collective to its knees. But the victory was not just Bonner's, it was humanity's. And as the months passed, Bonner began to realize that this was not the end of their story, but just the beginning. He had done what he set out to do, protect Earth and secure humanity's future. But now, it was time to focus on the future. It was time to honor the sacrifices that had been made and ensure that those sacrifices were not in vain. Bonner's legacy was now etched in the stars. His name would be remembered across the galaxy, not as a symbol of vengeance, but as a symbol of humanity's will to survive, to fight, and to endure. As word of the human victory spread across the galaxy, Bonner's story became a legend. It was a story of defiance against impossible odds, of courage in the face of certain death. And as humanity's influence began to grow, it was clear that the galaxy would never forget what they had achieved. Across the stars, the Omnia Collective's defeat sent ripples of fear through other alien empires. Bonner's name became a symbol of humanity's resilience. Wherever aliens had underestimated humans, wherever they had thought they could crush Earth beneath their heel, they now knew the truth. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. And they would never again be an easy target. It was not just the Omnia that learned this lesson. The galaxy's various factions, from the xenophobic Krelger to the ruthless Cenari, all took notice. The stories of Earth's resistance spread like wildfire, and soon, every corner of the galaxy knew the name Bonner. They knew that humanity was a species that would never surrender, never back down, and never be cowed by anyone, no matter how powerful. For Bonner, the war was over, but the fight had only just begun. Earth had won this battle, but the future was uncertain. There would be more threats, more enemies. The universe was full of dangers, and humanity would have to face them all. But Bonner knew that humanity had something no alien force could ever understand, a deep, burning desire to protect what was theirs. A fierce will to survive. Bonner's legacy would live on in every human who stood up against the odds, in every soldier who fought to protect Earth. And wherever there were aliens who thought they could underestimate humanity, Bonner's name would be a reminder that their fate was already sealed. They could never win against Earth. Not when humanity had the will to fight, and the strength to win. The final words of Overlord Nexus echoed in Bonner's mind one last time: "Your rage is your greatest weapon." Bonner had learned the truth of those words. Humanity's greatest weapon was not just its anger or its drive for vengeance. It was the indomitable spirit that burned in every human heart. It was the belief that no matter how dark the future seemed, humanity would never give up. And that, Bonner knew, was a victory that no one could ever take away.